Hello, welcome to the Middle Ground. I'm Elizabeth. I've had 10 years of political experience, and I'm here to make public content to share the kind of analysis I do behind the scenes with high ranking US officials, some international groups of diplomacy. I'm here to share my experience in the public view so you can hear a voice with a lot of experience that is saying something different than you get in the media or the political parties. About that, my dog was getting a little out of control. As I was saying, many of you know I've lived in Germany for several years, and I've been here through two German election cycles, which were a little bit, there's a lot of uncertainty when I moved to Germany surrounding when Chancellor Merkel would retire. So she was convinced when I moved here, Europe was experiencing the refugee crisis, the Eurozone uncertainty, was pre-Brexit. So all of those things have happened while she had maintained some continuity and for finishing out another last term, which ended this past December. So it was a concern of mine how Germany would transition into the post-Merkel years, and there's still a lot to be determined. But there was a power vacuum underneath Merkel that she really didn't have a successor. So allowing the political groups to find leadership that would be able to transition after her retirement has taken some concern and consideration over the past several years. And I've tried to check in regularly with Jake Sullivan, who's now the new National Security Advisor, to let him know what's going on the ground in German politics, let him know general sentiment about different political leaders, strengths and weaknesses. So the new coalition is an entirely new era in German politics. It's been a huge change. Not only have we changed leaders away from Chancellor Merkel, who had a very strong leadership style that had a lot of long longevity to it. She's been the chancellor for a long time. She's had a tremendous amount of influence personally in my professional career. She's been an inspiration and a role model to study, to look up to see her strengths and weaknesses. So it definitely has been the end of an era for many of us. And what better to do than try to honor her career by trying to make as smooth a transition as possible. So I'm sure many people who are not in Germany, have not necessarily followed the different political parties in Germany, but the SPD, that is now holding the chancellorship, had some leaders come and go. And so has the CDU had a leader elected to take over for Merkel that was a dud. So it's been quite an adventure watching the ebb and flow of leaders who in leadership trying to be developed in recent years to take over for her. So here we are, it's January 22. We have a totally new party leading the coalition. We have a coalition with the Green Party in it for the first time, which means this is the first time the Green Party has leadership roles. The Vice Chancellor is a member of the Green Party. So it's a time of big transition in many ways. So I want to cover a couple of players and a couple of factors that everyone should be considering. I was contacted recently by a client who asked me about some foreign relation advice in particular. So it touched on very current events and trying to understand what's going on in the German government during this transition. I would say it is not a good time to try to make expectations about what the long-term policies of the government might look like, because right now there's a lot of jockeying between these three parties. So first of all, I want to cover Chancellor Scholz. I am pretty enthusiastic about Chancellor Scholz. I've had really great feedback from other people who are German voters. My personal tie to Chancellor Scholz is that he rose at a rowing club in Hamburg. And I have friends on the German national team who have friends at the rowing club in Hamburg who row with Chancellor Scholz. So the fact that he's a rower already tells me he has to have a lot of patience, because if you don't know anything about rowing, it requires a lot of patience. It is not a quick, exciting sport. So that tells me a little bit that and what I've seen this past month is that he has come in a very humble posture, and voters have told me they recognize he has huge shoes to fill. They're willing to give him a little bit of time to figure out what his leadership role might look like, but he's not coming in guns blazing. He is coming in a very humble attitude. He seems to be very sincere. One German voter told me she was thrilled that he was competent and humble. She said, I said, yes, this is why we were relieved to have Biden as our president, because we had constant news cycles of bad behavior from our president. That's not what you want to see as a voter. You don't want to watch your national leader regularly, multiple times a day, just being ridiculous. And it gets to the point, a lot of the late night talk shows have talked about it being like Chinese water torture, where it's just that constant drip when you go to bed at night. It's there in your conscious. And what you want from a president is not to think about him all the time, to know that he's in control and doing his job. And so she said, absolutely. We feel like Scholz is a mini Biden. So a lot of popular energy to Scholz's chancellery going in, a lot of patience to see what he'll do. The jockeying that's going on right now, as I said, is this is the first time the Green Party has been in power. And I really want to touch on this. It's a very critical element in the current and future direction of German politics. And I want to do a full analysis to understand where we have been, where we are, and where we're going in German politics in terms of the Green Party. I like this. It doesn't matter what political system we're talking about. I like to describe a little bit about some of these extreme ideologies we're seeing in politics right now without much middle ground. We have a lot of people with vision. So we have a lot of the progressives, so-called, and they are looking at what the world can be like. They're looking at we need to find solutions and fix things without a lot of experience in policy implementation, in creating solid policy that takes all factors into consideration, not a lot of government experience. The German Green Party is a great example of that. They've been in the parliament for a long time, but not a lot of leadership. They've been in leadership on the local level in Germany in many areas and implemented changes to make things, more pedestrian friendly that have created big traffic problems because they don't do proper road engineering and traffic engineering studies when they make these changes. So we've seen in recent political debates over the past several years very easy ways to pick apart the policies they have because they're built a little bit on sand sometimes. We don't see a lot of grounding in government experience in a lot of these Green Party policies. And then on the other side, we have people with a lot of experience who know how to run government with no imagination. So, Germany is very proud of its bureaucracy. Sometimes the government becomes, you work, it's just a career path and it becomes very formulated. And then they expect you to continue doing things. And sometimes there's not enough innovation. There's not enough design thinking about if things aren't working correctly, we need to try new ideas. And so those wind up being the two extremes we see in many political systems at the moment, no different in the German political system. So it'll be interesting to see with the SPD in charge that may have a little bit more flexibility than the CDU, but still sometimes can veer into this very formulaic political career, bureaucratic career in their political parties. What kind of management style that they will bring, as well as I think, I don't know if it's because she's a woman, but Chancellor Merkel has led in Germany and in Europe at large with a very collaborative approach. And I think a lot of the German men coming into the leadership in Germany now have a risk of veering more into the ego-driven domain. And I think that they should take notes and learn from some of the ways that Chancellor Merkel was very collaborative, because I think we still have a little bit of a fragile situation in Europe politically. And if they come in with an ego-driven approach that becomes much more reactive and volatile, it can become a tinderbox. So I would definitely hope that the new German coalition will lean into some of the women in their conversations and their ministries to keep building on this part of the successful. That kind of is a breakdown of the current political situation. I mentioned that there's going to be a lot of jockeying. Again, this is the first time the Green Party has been this high up in government and had this much decision making and policy setting control. And I've had a lot of positive reviews from German voters about the vice chancellor in the Green Party. They think he has a lot of great ideas. So again, this is not a party devoid of ideas. They do not always think about how the consequences of the implementation. And I think I attribute that largely to lack of experience, that the people in government have not been willing to be innovative, so we don't have good examples for some of the changes they want to make, how to avoid some of the unintended consequences when those policies are implemented. Energy is a big one, but that's a big topic that I can do a separate video about. About the Vice Chancellor from the Green Party, as I said, people are excited to see what he'll do. They're excited to see, will he take a very pragmatic approach to Green Party ideas? Will he be able to bring these ideology that's kind of in the clouds, and will he be able to root it in some really grounded implementation ideas? People are watching, but the Green Party's foreign policy, especially, is very heavy-handed in micromanaging. Their ideology is it's that their responsibility to impose their human rights standards on other countries. I have a next video coming out that's going to look into foreign relations issues, but this is where they are starting out this term, and it may take them time. They're going to hit that hard at the beginning of this term. It may take time for the parties to work together to knock off some rough edges, to have some give and take about what works and what doesn't work with some of these ideologies. But there's going to be a lot of trial and error. So that's why I'm saying, if there are questions and the people are trying to make decisions on what Germany's government's foreign policy will look like right now, this is the realistic expectation, that it's going to be heavily driven by Green Party ideology that may not be a long-term policy, but right now, because of the jockeying happening, because the Green Party is very new to government, they're kind of come in hot with some of these ideas, and it might take time for them to mellow out and to settle down and work into the realistic practice from the other parties. Hopefully, this has been helpful. This is an introduction to German politics in January 2020. As I said, everyone has some good energy about it. I'm feeling good that Scholz looks like someone who's sincere and understands the the transition that he's in charge of is a very big one. He's filling some big shoes. It give the German government time to get to before you're going to have a very clear view of what direction they're going in. Right now, there's going to be a lot of jockeying between the three parties in this coalition. I hope this helps you all understand German politics today. Thank you for joining me. I have another video on foreign relations coming soon. Keep in touch. Bye.